Hi folks, HR Funk here, with a video that comes to you today as a result of a necessity and an unexpected opportunity. The necessity has to do with my Smith & Wesson Model 1522 rifle. Some of you know that I recently acquired this rifle, and I've set it up in accordance with my expected use, which is what I'll call light training, informal target shooting, plinking, some pest control in my backyard, and general shooting for anything that might be appropriate for a semi-automatic .22 rifle. The one thing that I had not added to this rifle as of yet was a bipod. And the reason was because for any bipod that more or less had the features that I wanted, I was going to end up spending on the top side of $100, and it's easy to spend a lot more than that on some bipods. And the entire rifle was only $500, and I just didn't feel like spending 20% of the cost of the entire rifle just to get a bipod. Now, it's possible to get lower priced bipods, but most of the time they don't have the features or the quality that I want. So I ended up not purchasing one. Now, I could have switched some bipods around with my other rifles, but that's also annoying because I have to take it off of one rifle, put it on this, and then take it off of this and put it back on the other rifle whenever I want to use that one. So I just hadn't purchased a bipod yet, and this is where the unexpected opportunity comes in. Now, I've mentioned before that I get contacted periodically by companies that sell all manner of things, and I'll get an email that says something like, "Hey, we've watched your videos, we love your channel, and we think you would be great for reviewing our product," and then they give me the spiel for whatever their product is. And sometimes it's absolutely ridiculous because there is no way that they have looked at my channel or watched any videos or know anything about it. The most recent one I got was something for interior illumination, as in ceiling lights and wall lights and things like that, and they wanted to send me some lights to review. I just happily deleted that away into oblivion. But I was contacted by a company called CVLIFE, which prior to I was not familiar with. And it turns out CVLIFE markets a variety of different firearms, accessories, tools, optics, and one thing and another. And one thing they marketed was a bipod. And this bipod is on Amazon. They have an Amazon web store, and there's going to be a link to the web store in the description of this video. And I saw the bipod was 55 bucks. And from what I could tell at looking at the Amazon ad, it seemed to more or less have the features I was looking for. So the only question was whether or not it had the quality that I wanted. So I responded to the email from CVLIFE and I said, yes, I would like to try one of your bipods, and they graciously sent me one. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the CVLIFE bipod. I'll tell you about its features and functions, and before it's all over, I'll tell you whether or not I think a $55 Amazon bipod is going to meet my expectations for this rifle. So here we go. And here's our first up-close look at the CVLIFE Tactical Bipod. And the first thing I can tell you is there are two different versions of this bipod, the only difference being the color. There is the flat dark earth that you see here, and it also comes in a black version. I opted for the flat dark earth because it matches the rest of the furniture on my M&P 1522. The bipod is constructed of lightweight materials, mostly plastic and aluminum, but there are also some steel components, specifically the leg locking pins that you see here. This bolt and also the bracket back behind are steel. And I'm going to check the mounting bracket, and the cross pin is definitely steel. The latch is steel. The bracket itself is aluminum. So there is some steel inside this bipod, but there's also a lot of aluminum and, as I said, plastic, mostly to keep down on weight. And if you're curious as to the result of those lightweight components, the weight of the CVLIFE Tactical Bipod is listed at just under 1 pound. It's 0.9 pounds. The bipod legs have 3 locking positions. They lock fully forward. They lock at the 90-degree position, fully extended, and they lock fully to the rear. So there are no locking 45-degree locations either forward or rearward for the legs. And they are locked and unlocked with the button right here. Just depressing it allows the leg to move into whichever position you want. This is a quick release bipod, and it can be quickly attached or detached to a 1913 rail with the latch that you see right here. And this works basically like a bicycle seat latch if you're familiar with those. You simply flip it open, which releases the latch, and the bipod can be removed from the rifle, or you can put it in place and return the latch to that position, and that locks it down. It is adjustable by means of an Allen wrench. So you do get an Allen wrench to adjust your latch, and once you tighten it into position and lock it down, then it stays very well in place. The legs on the bipod are extendable to adjust the height of the bore of your rifle from whatever surface you're shooting from. At the lowest position, the base of the bipod is 7.5 inches from the shooting surface. And when fully extended, the legs give you a distance from the shooting surface to the bottom of your rifle of 10.6 inches. There are notches on the back of the legs, so you can set these legs to whatever length you want. And here's a look at those locking notches that you can see right here in the back of the leg. And I don't know if you can see it over here, but on the inside they are also numbered. So if you have a particular position that you want to set these in, all you have to do is take note of which one that is, and you can reset the legs to that length every time. They're not easy to see because this is all the same color, but there are buttons right here in the front of each leg, and that's what is used to release the legs, extend them, and set them in whichever position you want. Obviously, when you release the button, it locks in place. Along with being adjustable for height, the bipod also has a full 360-degree pan, which allows you to adjust for your shooting position, track a moving target, or even hold off for wind. The bipod also allows the rifle to be tilted, and it can be tilted either left or right, but there are three positions, somewhat like the legs, only lock in the 90-degree position and then fully forward and fully rearward. With the tilt, we have the 0-degree tilt that you see here, and then 45 degrees to the right or 45 degrees to the left, but there are no in-between steps. And this is another thing that I wish was a little bit different, because you might need just a little bit of adjustment one way or a little bit of adjustment the other way and not a full 45 degrees, or you might even need a little bit more than 45 degrees, depending on how uneven the surface is that you might be shooting on. Now, if there's sufficient time, you can compensate for the lack of adjustability in the tilt by adjusting or shortening the length of the legs, but that takes some time and it can be a little bit tedious. It would be easier if there was just no locking position in the tilt of the rifle, but rather you could just move it as far as you needed to and then it would stay in place. The dial that you see right here is a tension adjustment for both the tilt and the pan. If you loosen this adjustment, it makes it easier to either rotate the rifle as you need or to tilt it whichever direction you might need it to go. And then as you tighten it down, you can eventually completely lock the rifle in place. Now, there's no way to lock the pan but still have the tilt, or lock the tilt and still have the pan. So you basically have to find the tension setting that's going to work right for whatever type of shooting you're doing and use that, but you can't use it separately for one function or the other. The bipod has rubber feet that you see here, which as best I can tell are not replaceable, so you can't choose some other type of foot to put in place here. You have to go with the ones that are here. According to CVLIFE, this is a very pliable rubber compound, and it is supposed to allow you to, as they put it, reasonably load the bipod on different types of surfaces, from concrete to grass to asphalt to roofing shingles. I have not tested that yet, so I will let you know eventually whether or not that works and how good it works. Other than the Allen wrench that I showed you a little while ago, the only other thing that comes with the CVLIFE bipod is an instruction manual, and it explains all these features and functions that I've just gone over. There is a number on the back that you can call if you have any kind of problems, and it does give you some at least pretty nice full color photographs inside of the, it's an instruction manual. It's actually more of an instruction pamphlet, but at least you can figure out all the things that it does, and it shows you how to do it. So one of the things I was curious about with the CVLIFE bipod is whether or not it would withstand loading. And when I talk about loading the bipod for a 22 rimfire, that's not going to be all that significant. But if some of you are interested in this bipod for something that's a little bit more substantial, something that has more recoil, and you really want to load this thing up, I'm curious how that's going to work. And I'm pushing against it as hard as I can from this position. And it is certainly not having any problem withstanding that pressure. So I would say when it comes to loading it, I'm actually trying to break it right now. If you can break this bipod by loading it, you are stronger than me. When it comes to the tilt and pan functions, as I mentioned in the shop, it's all determined by the tension placed on this knob. Right now I have it probably about halfway from being locked to being completely unlocked, and there's no problem with the tilt, as you see here. Again, I can only go about 45 degrees, might not even be quite 45 degrees. That might be more like 30 degrees to the left, 30 degrees to the right, and then the fully 90-degree location. The pan feels relatively smooth. In a prone position, I can only pan so far. If I was in a seated position at the bench, I could probably move a little farther. And I'm probably going to give this a try from the bench and see what I think of it there. The length of the legs in their shortest position is just about perfect for shooting from prone with a rear bag, at least for me. If your chest is bigger or your body is shaped somewhat differently, this could be different for you. But for me, this is just about right, and I can elevate the rear if I need to, or I can bring it down if I need to change the elevation of the muzzle, or at least the sight. So no problem with that. Let's see what it looks like with the legs fully extended. So here are the legs fully extended, and that's going to be high enough to get over a lot of geographical features. Obviously, it's not going to get over top of everything that might be between you and a target. It is not high enough to be able to use from a sitting position unless you are sitting with something in front of you to rest it on, and then it might work just fine. But overall, the extension is smooth. If I want to put it in one of these notches that are marked and then keep it there, if I know that I always shoot from a certain position at a certain location and I need just a particular elevation on the legs, as I said in the shop, all I have to do is take note of which notch the legs need to be in, put them in that notch every time, and then I'm all set. When it comes to shooting from the bench, a lot of the applicability of the leg length has to do with the height of your bench, the height of your seat, the elevation of your target at whatever distance you're shooting. And from this bench in this seat at the target I have in front of me, these legs are just a little bit long, but if the bench was a little bit shorter, if the target was a little bit higher, or any of those variables that might change, these legs would probably be perfectly suitable. As it is, all I have to do is add another sandbag back here to the back, and I can get, if I can keep from knocking my microphone over, the elevation that I need for the targets that I have downrange. When I had this bipod on the grass and I was pushing on it earlier, you might have noticed that the claim that CVLIFE made with regard to the rubber feet not slipping proved to be pretty true. As hard as I was pushing on this rifle, and by extension on the bipod, it wasn't moving at all in the grass. Now on concrete, again, I'm loading it as hard as I can and it's not slipping. So those rubber feet are doing pretty well. Some people want to get spikes or entrenching tools or bayonets or whatever to put on the end of their bipod, and so far I think the rubber feet on the CVLIFE are doing just fine. So, final thoughts on the CVLIFE Tactical Rifle Bipod. Throughout the course of this review, there have been little things that I have found to be critical of with this bipod. I wish I could adjust the latch, that connects to the 1913 rail without the need of a Allen wrench. I wish the legs had some stops that were not just 90 degrees and then all the way forward and all the way rearward. I wish that it didn't have that stop for the, what I'll call 45 degrees right, 45 left tilt. But then I have to stop and remind myself, this thing costs 55 bucks. And when I think about it in those terms, I don't really have any complaints about it at all. I'm not going to be throwing this rifle and the bipod attached to it out of an airplane. It's not going to be run over by a tank. I'm probably not going to be slamming it against a barricade or anything else. I'm not going to be attaching it to a Barrett or a 50 BMG or anything like that. It's going to be working with my 1522, and basically it's going to be a stand that I'm going to need if I'm shooting in the field, or maybe if I'm shooting from the bench and I want to use the bipod rather than a front bag. And I think for that type of use, with the features and functions it has, it's going to be just fine. If you think this bipod would work for you, not only is there a link to the bipod in the description of this video, but there's also a discount code for 20% off. So when you consider on Amazon, this is already 55 bucks, 20% off will save you another 10 bucks or so, 10, 12, whatever. For that price, for a bipod, you could do a whole lot worse. And that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, if you purchase anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it's good for 7% off your purchase from Optics Planet. And remember, House of Pain, you can go to House of Pain Armament or House of Pain Munition, and for either one, you can use my discount code there, which is HRFunk, and that'll save you some money off your purchase from House of Pain. And lastly, don't forget the Target sponsor. Go to Target's online, check out their inventory, and see if they have anything that's going to meet your Target needs. See you next time, folks. Until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.